We've reached the stage of the growing season where we have sunny and warm conditions, and that's largely very positive. But too much heat too fast can be a big problem. We can help with that. Welcome to Redox Grows. I'm Jim Morris with Redox Bionutrients. This is the latest in our series of technical podcasts where we take a more in-depth look at key agronomic issues. And joining me today is our Chief Agronomic Officer, Jared Sannar. Jared, so nice to visit with you.
Good to be with you, Jim. Thank you.
And I have a little background on Jared. He grew up in beautiful Gridley, California, in the Sacramento Valley, where they grow some of the world's best rice. It's a great small community, and there are many of those throughout the Central Valley. Jared is a PCA, CCA. He's been with Redox for many years. He has a Bachelor of Science in Agronomy from BYU, and he now lives, works, and farms in Fresno County in the San Joaquin Valley, one of the world's most productive farm areas. So, Jared, warm conditions, whether you're in the Central Valley of California or the central part of the Great Midwest, this could be problematic for growers. If growers do not take cultural steps or they don't have technology in their orchards and fields, what are the potential ramifications?
Well, I mean, ultimately it's about yield, right? So your yield's going to drag. You're not able to finish a crop. Heat stress can cause issues if you're looking for quality like, say, sugar or size or storability. Heat all affects that, and your return crop for a lot of our orchard systems or vineyards. Overdone, too much heat, too much stress, whether it's water stress or just light and heat stress, you will see the effects of that the following year in less canopy, less fruitfulness, that sort of thing. But first, Jim, I want to ask you. You mentioned Northern California, where I grew up. I know you spent many years there, and you're back in Idaho now. What do you miss? Because I haven't lived there in 20-something years. What are some of your favorite parts about Northern California?
How many minutes do we have for that? Yeah, it's just a phenomenal area, and I actually like the entire Central Valley from Redding to Bakersfield. It's phenomenal. It's a very underappreciated area. I think many of those small towns with such hardworking people. I love the moments you can have in a rural area and just to see the wildlife, see the farms, see all the activity and the hard work, and a lot of the great restaurants there too. We could probably talk for hours about restaurants too. So it's a wonderful place, and I love to get back and see my family and my good friends in the valley. So thanks for asking that.
Yeah, no, I say that because a lot of people think, oh, California, the farming is somewhat similar up and down the state, and it really is different. So I grew up north of Sacramento, and you mentioned rice, a lot of walnuts, some prunes, peaches. You get on the west side, there's tomatoes, row crops, and really it's very different. The climate is a little different compared to where I live now. The last, I've probably been down here over 20 years, close to 20 years, down in the Fresno County area, and the practices are different. The scope of the farms, size of the farms, irrigation setup is very different. Where Northern California, predominantly a lot of flood systems. Now, more and more every year goes by, there's more controlled irrigation. That's been that way for probably 15 years now. But the setup is different. Crops are different, and I say the climate's different. So you manage heat differently depending on where you're at, whether you have cool nights or not. You get down to the Central Valley. We don't really have that, delta breeze, which you're familiar with, that will flow in, and you'll get some cooling in the evening, early morning hours, even during the summer, if everything goes well. It's what you're hoping for. But down in Fresno, pushed down, obviously down in Bakersfield, you don't get that cooling effect. So when we get over these 100-degree days, it stays really warm at night. I mean, you're still in the 80s, maybe high 70s, but a low 80, and there's still a lot of stress and just general heat early morning that next day too. So different stresses, different strategies, but yeah, it's been fun being here at Redox for many years and learning how to use those tools. Like DICAP is one, soil things we do, so H85 would be another one. Mainstay SI is a tool that we use during our heat events, but yeah, it's use them differently with different results.
Let's talk about DICAP. That's a signature item that can help with abiotic stress, which is hot, cold, all sorts of things of that nature. And it is a go-to technology for many growers, whether they're in the Central Valley of California or many other areas of the U.S. Why is DICAP so effective? How does it help?
I think it's interesting because we talk about it for heat stress. Absolutely, we're going to cover that. But you mentioned cold, and this is one of the unique products that we have that really on both spectrums can help a consultant or grower deal with that stress because of the mode of action. The mode of action, this phenolic compound, respiration is increased, stomatal conductance is increased, where the plant is able to respire, move water, solutes, more effectively because of that biostimulate action. Yes, it has phosphorus and potassium, which is important for nutritional reasons as well as priming. Potassium is definitely involved in that stomatal conductance and helping move water and the general turgor in the plant. That's important. But these secondary metabolites or these phenolics that are specifically targeted towards cold stress and heat stress allow the plant to adapt quicker and to maintain that response longer. And once you reduce that stress, the plant's able to metabolize, move sugars, carbohydrates better. Say right now, say in grapes, what we're going on 100-degree days, you get the, say, dicap out, whether in the soil or in the foliar, and you can increase the plant's ability to deal with that stress and still produce the sugars, carbohydrates, protect itself from really those rays, those solar rays that are quite damaging at those high extreme levels, that is able to protect itself and just deal with this environment. Plant can't move, we always say, so it's got to adapt chemically, and dicap helps prop that and push the plant to be able to do that for a longer period of time.
And what is the end result for growers? That sounds like it's very helpful for the plant, but come harvest time, what will the growers see when they use dicap, they take the proper precautions?
So say big crop here in California is almonds is one of them. Talk about that, talk about grapes in general, and if I forget something, just remind me or ask me. But say like in almonds, typically dicap will start, we'll do, get dicap foliar starting post bloom, 5-week post petal fall, maybe a touch after, definitely in our May spray in June. And what we're trying to do there is aid and fill those early applications where we want to provide energy, reduce some stress, increase the secondary metabolites, but also prop up the plant's ability to have that extra energy to fill. And as you move along in the summer, go past gel stage to starts to harden. You're not filling necessarily anymore, but the canopy is under a lot of stress because of environmental conditions. Like you said, crop load is a big one, and the environmental conditions say too much heat. Maybe we get a late rainstorm that causes some humidity and some challenges. We want to keep that plant, that tree in this case, almonds, primed, healthy, able to deal with that stress, and to continue to push through these hot months that we have, this June and July, where water is a big deal, moving in that extremity of that canopy. And as things shut down, stomatal wants to shut down when things start to get too hot, and you don't move nutrients and water as effectively. So you want to keep the stomatal active, air, carbon dioxide exchanging there at that leaf surface, and that will keep the plants healthy as possible and keep it vibrant and moving through the summer months. And that's going to end in yield. And I don't want to forget, yes, yield this year, but in that June, July, August timeframe, buds are developing for the next year's crop. And so it's trying to balance crop we've got on right now and next year's crop, those buds, and keep those healthy. So anything we do to reduce the stress, particularly when it comes from heat, that will aid in better yield, the returning that following year.
Antioxidants are important for humans, they're important for plants, and as we talked with Dr. Olivier Husson from France recently, he talked about the better antioxidant level in the plant. That's also something that we'll then consume, so it's a full circle of benefits. Also, when you talk about improving the cell walls, the firmness, the storability of these items that are being grown, that's not a little thing. That helps growers immensely, correct?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So that's one of the issues, say, maybe I'll just take cherries or table grapes, which are two important crops for us in the state and in other states, internationally as well, where mainstay SI, we start applying mainstay SI at our, Occasionally we'll do it in bloom period, before flowers or fruit is set. Definitely during that set period of early fruit development, our mainstay SI applications, anywhere from a quart to 2 quarts, as much as a gallon in some instances, foliarly we'll put on, really targeting that early fruit development, that cell division stage. As that fruit is developing, in table grapes we call it our sizing period, where we get our sizing sprays on. We will often use a product called Supreme as well as Mainstay SI to really capitalize on the quality aspect that we're going to see at the end of the season. We want size uniformity, and we will definitely see that. You'll bump up in size or ring size, whether you're averaging 13-16 to a 14-16 row size, say like in a cherry. You want to get into those 8.5, 9, less of the 10s, 10.5s, and slide that up to a larger piece of fruit. It's going to be more marketable, but you need that fruit to be able to store. A lot of times, particularly grapes, they'll need to sit in storage month, 2 month, depending on the market, with how much that marketer can export or send domestically. It needs to have legs. It needs to be able to sit in storage. And so Mainstay SI has been one of these products that has really changed the way our customers can put up a piece of fruit and have that store and still have the taste and the firmness and the shelf life when it can make arrivals, less rejections, and just more advantageous and more desirable for that buyer that comes to the cold storage. I'd say in grapes, they'll come out and they'll pull out boxes, lay them on the table, they'll look at the fruit. It's been in storage for a month, 2 months, and they'll look at it, and they'll look at it to another grower, and they'll make a decision on, okay, what loads do I want, which crops do I want, based on taste, firmness, how well it looks. Do you have botrytis sneaking in that box that's been in storage for a while? All that matters for that grower to be able to get his fruit out at the best price. And Mainstay SI has been one of those tools that's helped us gain an edge there.
That's very interesting. And when it comes to things like cherries, I think about how much the grower is compensated for the premium quality fruit. San Joaquin County, for example, had a poor year. They had a disaster that occurred, which happens with cherries more often than not. But when they can hit it with good quality, good size, firmness, storability, they're sending a lot of those cherries to Japan. It really pays off. You mentioned Supreme. So what's the makeup of Supreme, please?
I will get to that. You said something about cherries, so I have a block of cherries that is a young block that I was hoping to have a first harvest on this year. You mentioned this year has been difficult, and yeah, I felt that difficulty because I had flowers, but we had this incredible heat the year before, incredible stretch of high heat in California for a prolonged period of time. And this block is a younger block. I thought I might have beyond really the edge of the first crop. Would it be harvestable? Would it not? And ultimately, I made the decision not to harvest it. Just didn't have enough fruit to pencil out to do it. We had fun picking and giving to friends or whatever, but most of it just went to waste. But I say that because my neighbors, people in the county that have mature blocks, there weren't a lot of cherries this year. And there's been a lot of speculation on why. Was the chill right? I think for the most part, yes. The varieties that were low chill varieties they did have more crop and they were more consistent. So could that have something to do with it? Yes. A lot of people speculated it was that high heat during bud differentiation that really caused issues generally up and down the state, particularly the southern end of the state. More northern you went, you had more consistent yields, but not perfect there either. You didn't have flowers that were large. Maybe the pollen wasn't, the flower just wasn't set up to set and make a piece of fruit. And so again, it gets back to that stress, how you manage it, what can you do to overcome. All these are just degrees of success that you're trying to go for there. And there's a difference on how you manage and what you can overcome. And some growers had success, others did not. And this was a year you wanted to have success in cherries because not a lot of people did. So if you had a nice product and you got on the market, there was profit to be had for a grower, which everybody needs that from time to time. So sorry, yes. Go ahead, Jim.
You're probably selling them by the each if you have them this year. But the other part is Supreme. Tell me about the makeup of it. It sounds very appropriate for this time of the year, but a little more specifics on it.
Yeah, so Supreme is one of our top products. It does have the biostimulant makeup of that is a fermentation. Seaweed's involved in that fermentation of the product. It takes about 3 weeks to make that fermentation. We extract particular carbohydrates and carbon compounds from that that help us drive set and sizing within crops. Yes, you look at the label, it has a little bit of P and K, it has micronutrient, zinc, it's got boron, manganese, zinc. What did I say? Zinc, boron, manganese. I'm missing one in there, but it does have a makeup of micronutrients. But the general, why do we put it on? Because we need to set more. Say like in almonds, like I mentioned, we would put that on during bloom period to help that plant, stimulate that plant to want to set more crop. Say like in cherry we talked about, or in grapes, we use it in potatoes, we use it, tomatoes, we use it in strawberries, these crops, blueberries that we want to, some of them have continual flowering throughout the season, so you have continual set periods. So we apply that product to provide carbohydrate base, a biostimulant base, and nutrition to drive setting and sizing throughout the season. So again, you're looking to shift that profile to a larger size. Say there's a crop that, we got to come back and thin. Say I'm thinking like peaches or nectarines, some like apples, some varieties. We set too much. We don't want to put anything on that's going to set even more. So what we do there is we don't apply Supreme early. We wait till the fruit's on, the fruit has been set, and then you apply to drive a sizing effect, not so much a setting effect. So yes, that's being applied actually on some grapes that I consult on as well as grow. We're just starting our Supreme applications right now, and we're at post-fruit set. We're at 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter fruit size in some of these grapes, and we're applying Supreme 1, sometimes 2 pounds in a foliar application to drive that sizing effect that we need. It's about uniformity of berries, and we need on the larger side of berries. You don't get a lot of money per box if your grapes are on the smaller size. Those end up in kind of domestic markets, lower end grocery retailers, and there's just not the money to pay for the cost of putting up boxes of grapes. You need that larger size profile, and that's where Supreme really shines for us.
H85, not all humic acids are the same. Dr. Gift Gillette and Dr. Deepatosh Das here have done a lot of research. We have an exceptional humic product. How helpful is that this time of the year?
Yeah, so that organic acid product makeup, H85, has got several different types of fractionated carbon in there. Humic acid is one. There's fulvic, there's larger chain, and these super molecules that are talked about that are inside that product, really helping drive, biological function for sure in the root zone, but a lot of research is water, having the plant be able to access that water and holding water in that root zone. So when water is limited, and it is in a lot of cases, and we need the plant to access that regularly, H85 has been a clear winner in the summer months. Obviously early is important in establishment, whether say it's an annual crop, you're putting in, sugar beets, you're putting in tomatoes, you're putting in corn, things like that you're planting and you're going to be harvesting in a few months. We want to maximize that root zone in nutrient cycling. H85 aids in that, but also just water available for those roots and driving nutritional availability and energy in that root zone, in that rhizosphere. So that's definitely a winner. I love applying it with UN32. Often nitrogen is being fed throughout the season. Some of these crops, I will often add a quart to 2 quarts of our H85 flowable with, say, like a UN32, an AN20 type nitrogen to really aid in some absorption and the availability. They just seem to go together. Nitrogen needs carbon to really be effective in that plant, and those two together have been much improved in just nitrogen itself going out. I really like that combination, and it's going out now in the next couple months.
You mentioned the very small amounts that we're talking about. Across the board with the Redox technology, it's a pretty judicious amount. Can you comment about that? It's very different than many of the other options that growers are considering.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's one of the things that somebody new to Redox or a consultant new to Redox that's recommending. It's like how are you applying only a pound of this die-cap product, where I typically go out with 5 pounds of something or 3 gallons of something. How does that work? And really, you kind of flip the idea there, and it's often said, well, why am I having to put out 5 pounds or 10 pounds of something to get a similar effect? So it's about product formulation. Definitely that matters, and the form and the function of what that can have on that plant. So yeah, could it be a bit of an adjustment for somebody? Yeah, I guess. But with experience, obviously something like die-cap, it's been in the market for many years and is a top seller. There's a little bit less of that than maybe we saw years ago. I can remember 24 years ago when I first worked for Redox. I've been here for a while, went away and then came back. But I've remember those days where that was really new. Really low concentration or low amounts being applied. There weren't many products out there like that. Now today we see that quite often in chemistry, where you low amounts, ounces per acre, and we get a similar effect. So the same thing on the fertilizer side, particularly when you're adding biostimulant, when you're adding carbon, particularly selected to drive a metabolic response. You don't need that much to trigger that and to prime that. So it's about nutrient efficiency, and it's about the carbon compounds that drive the response we're looking for. You don't need much to get that. So I don't know if I answered your question on that, but it does come up, and it's about efficiency, and it's about getting the response that we're targeting, and it doesn't take a lot of material to do that.
Well, efficiency, sustainability, they all go hand in hand, and a good return for the growers, and we can certainly help with that. Jared, plant charge balance is an issue that we talk about more and more. And is that concept resonating with growers, the fact that if you have a plant that is in balance, that you're going to have better results in the short and long term?
Yeah, it's a newer, I guess, theme or concept that hasn't been talked about a lot. But when you do bring it up, think about plants need to stay in balance, cations, anions. I think it's understandable. We understand how nature works, the human body works. Understand, you dig into plants, you look at it and say, oh yeah, they do need to stay in balance. Whether you're talking a pH balance within the plant or just cation anion balance there, yeah, that makes sense. So we haven't really thought about that. We understand balance in the soil when it comes to cations and anions. I think that's understood of a consultant, an agronomist. He understands why balance is important. It's just taking that concept, and it's a little different within the plant, and thinking about it differently. So yes, I would say it's newer for most, but very interested in people have been noticing and seeing some results as they address balance, help the plant balance itself out, seeing effects. That's why you can see things 2 to 3 days later. A lot of times you apply something and you'll see an effect 2 or 3 days later, because you're improving that balance of the plant to drive the response that it was needing. So yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, no, it's been a fun avenue to highlight, illustrate, talk about, and learn along the way too. Right, we're still learning. There's been a lot done in different ways to track results within plants, whether petiole samples taken, seeing what's in flow. Sap samples are gaining popularity in some areas in different crops, seeing what's in the sap today at a given time. Tissue analysis is also there, and then obviously soil analysis. And just within soil analysis, well, you're looking at paste extract, a weaker acid extraction, a harder acid. There's lots of ways to gather information. All of them have value. It's figuring out which ones work for you, which ones do you compare and contrast and get the best information to make the best decision. So it's always evolving, and it's fun to be at Redox. So we're right in the thick of it, trying to learn as well, and adding our I guess experience and the outcomes that we've been having to that conversation has been great.
Yeah, never stop learning, and we just all have to try to keep up with Darren Moon and the example that he continues to set. So when you're looking at the stress of plants, the stress that growers go under when you have all those triple-digit temperatures, when we as a company, when our technology, when you specifically with the growers that you work with that you know very well, you want success for them. When the stress is lowered for the crops and the stress is better for the growers, how does it make you feel?
I don't know if the stress is ever ever off for growers or consultants in the heat. I get what you're saying there, but yeah, it's when you drive out to the field and you walk the rows and you just get a sense of the plants are happy, they're open, leaves are big. You can see there's just not a lot of leaf curling or just stress on the leaf itself. You can see that. It does feel good. You dig, you take your shovel, you dig and look at roots, and they're healthy. You've got a lot of new roots, root regeneration that's happening, even at the tail end of the season. You've done what you can do. I mean, there's only so much you can do. We're battling nature, battling varieties, genetics. You can only do so much, and then you just have to say, okay, I've done what I can do, and now I'm going to manage the harvest and to manage the nutritional aspects as I close out the year. But yes, it feels great, and what I do love is turning fields around, helping capture profitability that wasn't there before, finding what some of those missing links were to really get us to the next level. It's a competitive, very competitive landscape in there, particularly when you get to a specialty crop. There's margin of error is very thin. Costs of labor are increasing every year. Just the difficulty of operating in many of these crops and states that we operate in ourselves, the growers, there's a lot of pressure on that grower to develop profitability day in and day out. And so hitting the yield, hitting the quality at a budget is so important. And that's one part that we can help with. The labor, the cost of water, regulation, all that we can't do a lot about, but it's definitely on the plate, and pushing yield, quality pays the bills. So yeah, that's been fun.
Well, we are ready, willing, and able to help. And Jared, great to visit with you today.
Thank you, Jim.
And that will wrap up our episode. You can find out more at redoxgrows.com. Thanks for joining us.